11:30. It'll be a Zoom recording. It'll be regarding the economic evaluation study for the commuter and passenger train service between Portland and Lewiston, Auburn area. And it says the goal of this evaluation is to further the proposed service with regards to alternative evaluations, station planning, and economic impacts. So that'll be the one of the first presentations. It's not done with the committee that I serve on. It's a totally separate group of people looking at the passenger rail service. And the Northern New England Passenger Rail Group is going to be there. Patricia Quinn, I think Falmouth, Cumberland resident, she was right up the street. She will be part of that group presenting, and I look forward to that evening. Unfortunately, it will be a Zoom meeting, but I think it'll be a good presentation of the data and the study they found to date on the economic evaluation of the corridor. The other items to report tonight to you are our Public Works team will be working in the Rhines Forest, building the trail essentially toward the Godso Woods. If those of you are familiar, it's kind of heading toward the Golf Learning Center and toward ultimately Blanchard Road eventually. That will begin, I believe, tomorrow or Wednesday. I look forward to having that trail open. It's really difficult to get through there because it's not much of a trail there now. Attempts before we owned the property were made, and it just didn't work. We have great conditions right now. As dry as it is, it's easy to access and easy for our equipment to get in there and build it and put in the proper size culvert so it doesn't get washed away and those type of things. So that'll be underway shortly. Paving, it looks like we're going to suspend our street paving program this summer. And when I say suspend, I do mean that because honestly we have completed a section of Route 88, the Wildwood neighborhood, and the library. The other streets that were scheduled in there were probably about a half a dozen, and it looks like because of their length and their size, we're going to combine them with next year's paving schedule for hopefully a better price than we're getting right now. Prices are up at least 30% right now, and we're concerned that it's difficult to gauge because we also get trucking surcharges that are tied to the price of diesel and also asphalt liquid adjustments, and we don't know what those are typically until the day we pave. So rolling the dice is really not worth it at this point, so we'll wait till next spring to advertise this group of roads with the next. Old Musket and Long Meadow Road are scheduled to be bid on July 14th, so we hope to have those numbers to you at your next meeting so we can award that contract. As you remember, part of that was funded with the ARP funds, and that will have a better number and a better feel for where that's headed as well. And then finally, there has been a lot of discussion around senior tax rebates, and that's really exciting information. Honestly, I would encourage anyone over 65 to apply for those. We don't have any information yet from the state. John Brushwine, our assessor, has been on the phone several days with Maine Revenue Services, and John has basically informed me that they expect to have the forms in the next couple of weeks, but no later than September 1st, and that it will be a very simple form to fill out. It's going to be very much like the other state programs that are kind of a one-pager and check the boxes, and they'll be responsible for most of the information in that program. Our council vice chair, Mark Segrist, is looking to make a presentation to the council and the public in 2 weeks as we get more information just about the 3 different programs, because there's a program that's for folks with $40,000 of income or less, which allows them to defer their entire property taxes. That, again, is through the state. The second program is very similar to the one we were proposing, where it kind of freezes your taxes at this year's rate. And that's what those applications do this year. They basically put you in the queue to freeze
before going into the agenda. So for all those here and then all those watching, the extension came, originally the due date was Thursday, July 7th, and it was extended 2 weeks to July 21st. Originally, when we met on that workshop, we knew we were at risk opening the applications to be the week before July 4th and the week after July 4th. But we were kind of marching toward a goal under the impression that if we could get that school board member appointed before the end of July, they would be able to attend a retreat and onboarding workshop with the school board in August. When we came back from July 4th week, on that Tuesday, we had 0 applications. So we had no interest. Over the next 36 hours, 48 hours, we did receive some applications, but on Tuesday afternoon, when we had 0 applications, I sent a note out to the council members here to say at that time we had 0 applications. If we did not have 3 applications that met the requirement of not having a family member employed by the school, being a resident of the town, and having lived here for a year with the intent of being here for the term, we would move forward due to communication kind of timelines of when being able to get it into the forecaster and getting it into the crier so that we could publicly notify everyone, we would move forward with the extension. On Thursday morning, we were also notified that that school board meeting and retreat would be happening on July 18th. So before we would have been able to get the school board member appointed. So that kind of rush and push that we were going for and that kind of very tight timeline happening right before July 4th and after July 4th would have been moot. And so in that consideration, we did. We opened it up for another 2 weeks. We, at this point, I don't know if we've gotten more interest, but we do have 6, and I think that's wonderful, and it's great. No one reviewed the applications. The nominating committee, along with the rest of the council, was set to meet the following Monday. So this has nothing to do with the folks that submitted. We haven't seen those letters of interest. It really was a matter of, there's a lot on this school board's agenda over the next year, and we wanted to make sure that by kind of opening it up during one of the peak holiday vacation 2 weeks, especially in the state of Maine, that we weren't missing out on someone that would come back on that Thursday or the following Monday and realize that they had missed the application period. That is it. And I don't disagree with you, Jason, that we went forward with the best intentions on this one and fully learning from, I think, our council open enrollment and trying to be as transparent as we could. Hence, again, making sure we were making decisions that were documented appropriately at the time when we had 0 candidates and what our go-forward process was going to be, and when we had to make that call in order to move forward with the communication so that it was as transparent as possible for the public. So thank you for giving me that opportunity. I don't diminish your angst on this. I can absolutely appreciate you wanting to get someone into this seat as soon as possible and for potentially feeling distrust. I'm not sure why it would be distrust because we were pretty transparent on the intent and then also why we made the decision and notifying the public appropriately, having not reviewed any of the letters of interest. But I can understand how you're upset with the timeline.
Clarify a couple of things. July 18th is our first regular meeting for the school board. The retreat doesn't happen until the 22nd, I think.
Of August, Jason? Or
Correct.
July?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so we'll still have the person in before then.
The
Good.
sooner the person's on board, the better as far as building that relationship. I've got to figure out who's going to be on committees and that sort of thing. My main issue is that the deadline didn't pass before a decision was made. And then none of us would have egg on our face if that path was followed. So I appreciate all you said, understand it. Moving on.
Thank you, Jason.
Madam Chair, can I address that?
Sure.
I've got to agree 100% with Jason, and we had a deadline. I understand what you did, and there was no ill intent, but what bothers me, this is the second time in a month that this council has come out to the public and told them one thing and done another, and I'm really bothered by it, and I mean, our word has to be good, it has to be good to the public. I made a living on testifying and my word had to be good, or, you know, I would have been thrown out of my previous profession. But this is not good that we have a deadline, we tell people we have a deadline, and then we don't stand up to our word. And personally, I would like to go forward and cut off whatever applicants applied before 4 PM on Thursday, and regardless of who applies from here on in, or after the 7th, we don't consider them. We consider the people that applied on the time frame that we promised them. We made that promise. So I would hope this council would entertain not taking in any other names after 4 PM on the 7th. Thank you.
I don't disagree that our word is important and process is important, but I think in the ultimate responsibility of this council is to find the best person to fill the seat on the school board. And again, having zero interest on the Tuesday after July 4th and having, I think we had 3 as of Wednesday, again, not knowing who they were, but knowing that we had just come off a housing task force that had 16 applicants of interest, it felt disconnected. And it felt like perhaps we wouldn't be doing our ultimate goal of filling this seat with all of the possible and the best person to fill this role. So again, I think when it comes to trust and transparency, the fact that we didn't have the nomination committee and then make the decision, to me, that was the most transparent we could be and kind of clear and honest to say this has nothing to do with the candidates that submitted and more just a matter of sheer quantity that we had to choose from.
But here we are today. Hindsight, in this case, is 2020. We know that we have 6 candidates that applied by 4 PM on the 7th. Why are we afraid to stick with that? Why are we, I understand, and there is no ill will on your part, absolutely. But we know that we gave the people in town our word that was 4 PM on the 7th. I'm asking this council to look and say, let's stick with that, and let's go with the candidates, the 6 that we had by 4 PM. No harm, no foul. That's what I'm asking.
I would say with that in mind, and I totally understand, oh, sorry, better? Thanks. Kind of having said that, I think there's also, you know, when we're looking at optics, we have communicated that we've extended that deadline out. And so to be ping-ponging back and forth as well, kind of puts us in a difficult position to say, okay, you know, first it's 4 PM and then we're extending it for another 2 weeks and then, well, just kidding, you know? So I think that also when we're talking about trust and transparency, we've made a decision, and I think certainly we can be really thoughtful about how we improve the process for the future, but I think it would engage kind of, or introduce some additional confusion for the folks. Plus also, I mean, think about the time that the additional candidates, if there were any, spent putting those letters together, and to not really give them the opportunity to be reviewed isn't necessarily paying homage to the time that they've spent and kind of the thoughtfulness of, you know, putting their word out and what they would bring to the board. So I think that it's incumbent on us to also review those applications as well.
All right, I've got to sign in here, too. All those folks who put in an application either before the 6th or after the 6th may not reach the bar that we are looking for, Jason. So be clear on one thing, we may not find an applicant that meets our criteria of anybody who put forth an application, and we may put it back out again, or we may take a different tack. But just because people have put in an application either on the first deadline or the second deadline, doesn't mean that we're going to be choosing from that pool. And I think that should be loud and clear, that we have a criteria that we're going to be looking for, and we're going to fill it accordingly. So.
I was going to say what Bob had said, you know, so that's, you know, the perspective I had as well. You know, because we're pretty clear about getting someone who's really going to step in and be ready to do a lot of things in a challenging year ahead.
So we have an ask of a counselor to move forward at this point with applicants that have been in through July 7th. I am of the opinion, we've put it out there. We stick with the extension as is. I think noting that an application was in by July 7th versus not is appropriate as we're looking at the applications. But I'm with Tig that we've put it out there at this point. So to all of a sudden say, just kidding, we're cutting it off, I don't know how we do that.
I think that we follow our mandate here under item 4. If we want to bring this up further at the end of the meeting, of the new business, we can, but I think we should move forward with the agenda.
Are we good with that? Time of bringing public discussion items back up during new business? We have to work through timing if we're doing that anyways. That work? Thank you. Anyone else from the public on non-agenda items? We didn't vote, but so under public discussion, we can bring items back up under new business for further discussion. So to move forward with the agenda, the formal agenda items, we will be bringing it back up under new business as a council.
May.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
May.
You don't have to stay until the end of the meeting.
Yeah.
No, I might stay, but, I do have 4 kids at home, and, it's summer, it's crazy. Hannah Barry, live in Cumberland, and I really appreciated hearing you all digest that, and I really appreciate the format of getting a response from the council to Jason's comments. That's just really effective communication, and I want to say, love that. Might come a lot more often. That being said, I'm not going to name anyone else's names but my own. I was one of the people who applied before the deadline. So for those in the room who may not know that, or those at home, and I definitely was sitting there, like waiting for 4 o'clock to find out who else put in, because I'm very passionate about the schools, and I'm a very hardworking town person, and I just want to know who's up, who wants to do it. And I didn't know anyone did. I didn't know anyone. So I was like, oh God, only me? No one else said anything. Then I find out when the deadline passes that it's been extended. And I was like, oh gosh, there must have been no one but me. That's too bad. Then I start writing some friends. And it turns out there were a couple people in town that I know that put their name in before the deadline. And I immediately said to my husband, wow, they are maybe more qualified than I am. And I was shocked that it wasn't what you consider to be candidates worthy of considering. You may not have seen them, I'm not sure, but somebody knows who applied because they emailed us all and told us they were extending it. And it did send a message that A, the deadline wasn't really a deadline, and I felt like, wow, I got it in, and I was really passionate about making sure I got it in, and other people did as well. So I hear that you're gonna perhaps continue the discussion, or you're going to keep it as an extended deadline. But I just wanted to put a word out there that there were 2 other incredibly qualified candidates that applied for that position. And I know, having met them, how passionate they are about the schools and how hardworking they are. And I'm not sure what the criteria would be, but educated, advocate for the kids, hardworking, smart townspeople that want to do the work. And the fact that they put the effort in to get it in there on time, I thought said something. So I appreciate you hearing me out, and I appreciate all your hard work in trying to fill that seat so we can make things happen at the schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. Anything else? All right, so moving to legislation and policy.
My name's Mike Doyle. Excuse me, I'm taking allergy medicines. Terrible. My name's Mike Doyle. I live in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. But I take an interest in what goes on in Falmouth and Cumberland from many years in this area. I'm going to give you an update of what's happening with Ann Maximowicz and her activities. I was arrested in a courtroom in Cumberland County by Sergeant LaChance here at the police department for another half-baked charge of harassing Ann Maximowicz. I have never called her, I've never spoken to her face-to-face. I sent an email to the school board criticizing her and other people in the school board, and she considered that harassment. And Peter Goronides, the judge that lives here in Cumberland, ruled that I was guilty of harassment. Now, Judge Goronides, good person that he is, cited a couple of dozen main cases in a very well thought out, well-written decision, but he ignored 6 very important Supreme Court decisions which protect content-based comments. And all of my comments to her was after she did something to me. The first was when she stole my sign format and converted it to a campaign format for herself. And she actually testified in court that she took it from my website because my website wasn't copyrighted. Now, this website in the last 18 months had 7.2 million hits on a distribution list of 67 names. And for her to think there's no copyright at the end of the website is ridiculous. If she had scrolled down to the last page, she would have seen copyright 2010 through 2022. So she admitted to stealing it in front of Judge Goronides after Sergeant LaChance arrested me for another one of her charges against me. And all these charges are protected free speech under Supreme Court decisions. And I've got a motion to vacate his guilty plea against me. I've got a huge number of motions on this number of cases coming up at the end of this month. The first one was to vacate the ridiculous criminal trespass on the school fence. When you allow somebody to put a bed sheet size, and it was a bed sheet, I'm pretty sure, honk if you support the school board sign on the fence in support of the employers of the school board, of the school management, and you leave it there for 10 days, you now open the fence up as a public bulletin board by law. The 14th Amendment gives me equal protection under the law that if you allow one person to place a sign on the fence, anyone can. My sign was on the fence for probably an hour when the school maintenance guy, supervised by a police officer to protect him from me doing something, I was notified it was being taken down, so I came back to the school and watched it. By the time I got there, it was already taken down and stolen by the maintenance person, by the school department. No right to take my sign. Take it down, have no right to steal it. Now, there was a Cumberland police officer in attendance to maintain order, I guess, and the town manager showed up as an observer. He wasn't giving any directions to the police officer. The police officer were under the directions of Jeff Porter, apparently. Why else would he be there? Jeff Porter asked for a police officer to be there to make sure that the maintenance guy could steal the sign. Well, this goes on. After a period of time, I get discovery from the town of Cumberland, from the police department, that they had a meeting in June of 2021, apparently to organize a group of half-baked cockamamie charges against me to keep me from coming to school board meetings and fake criminal trespass charges against me. And this was led by D.A. Sarbeck. He gave suggested wording to the chief of police on things to send me in emails and letters to keep me from coming there and warning me that I'll be arrested and so on and so forth. A conspiracy is when you get together with a group of people and do something that's illegal. Now, I wasn't doing anything illegal, so they weren't getting together to investigate something I was doing illegal. They got together to do something illegal to prevent me from having my civil rights protected. And I can guarantee you one thing, I'm getting good at this stuff. I just filed an appeal with the U.S. Supreme
Mr. Doyle,
Oh.
Court.
that's 5 minutes.
I'm gonna use 2 minutes of rebuttal, okay?
But you're not rebuttaling anything.
I'm gonna rebut myself.
No, sir. I'm sorry. That's your 5 minutes.
Okay, well, I'm just saying that I'm getting good at this. And if you guys want to have the school board and other people screw around with me, I'll keep you in court until I fall over dead by the looks of it. but this is ridiculous.
Thank you.
You're welcome. See you in court.
All right, legislation and policy, 22-082, to hold a public hearing to consider and act on a mass gathering permit for the Down East Street Rod Club's 50th Annual Rod Run to be held on August 19th and 20th at the Cumberland Fairgrounds. Now, I thought this was a road race, but it's a car show. So I don't know if there's anything else. We know we have the application. Are there any questions? Anyone wanting to come up and comment on this from, yep, go ahead. Just state your name and address.
Joanne Fryer, 111 Bruce Hill Road, Mofield Farm, which is a wedding venue. On the 20th, I have a wedding, and I just want to make sure it's just a car show. Many of the events lately at the fairground have been unbelievably loud. Like the circus, I was sort of picturing an organ grinder, you know, little monkey. 3 days of nonstop bands, and I mean, it was like 3 times a day, just deafening. Fortunately, I didn't have a wedding. I sent Bill my dates on November 7th last year. You'll all remember, well, not all of you, Tig, you weren't here, but we had a discussion about the sound from the harness racing, and that's been handled beautifully. I haven't had any problems with that because Mike Timmons turns the sound off during a ceremony, but turns it down. I just want to make sure, because when I looked at their advertisement, which they advertise this before they get the permit, it says there's a sock hop and a band, the Golden Gup. And I just want to make sure when my ceremony's at 4:30, we have a harpist at 4 o'clock. And after what happened yesterday at the fairground, I don't know if y'all are aware, but they were practicing tractor pull. And no notice, no nothing, no advertisement of this. I guess there were about 12, I don't know, practicing. I mean, so I drove over there, and there was nobody there except the people that were practicing. It was unbelievably deafening and loud, which fortunately I didn't have an event, but that's just not appropriate to a residential area. And the Saturday of the circus, where there was also harness racing, unbelievable. I mean, you just couldn't even be outside. So I think somebody needs to just look at this. I'm fine if the 20th is just a car show, no problem. As I've said many times, everything in the last decade until this year was all appropriate to a residential area. You know, the dog shows are great, the yard sale is great. I mean, we support all of that. But this year, there have been very, very, very loud events. So I have a very big wedding that day, and I want to make sure it's just a car show, and we don't have like them revving the hot rod engines. I don't know what a hot rod is, but it doesn't sound quiet. So I just want to make sure that while the harpist is playing, we don't have what we had yesterday, which I literally thought maybe the Russians had bombed us or something. It was, and then I went over, the dust was unreal. I mean, it was like a mushroom cloud. So I felt really sorry for the people that were over there because they didn't advertise this. So that's my comment. And if we can get assurances to that, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yep. We have some sound ordinance stuff, right? I know this came up when we were talking about the harness racing in and of itself.
Right. Basically, we asked that during the harness racing, in particular, under that mass gathering permit, it was 65 decibels at the property line.
Okay.
And Lyle Merrifield is here.
I was going to
from the
say, I was
fair,
just going to
so-
call you up, Lyle, if you had a sense or any response to the concerns, or just in general, the plan for this event.
Talking about you want me to talk about the tractor practicing yesterday or the Down East event?
The Down
You
East
can,
event.
yeah, stick to the
Down
agenda
East
item.
event, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, have a dance Saturday night. It starts, I think, at 7 and ends at 10, I believe.
That's not part of this application.
It was when we sat in the,
Is that the
That-
20th?
Yeah, the 19th is 7 AM to 11 PM, and August 20th is 7 AM to 7 PM.
Okay, then it's probably the first night then.
Friday night is the dance.
Okay. Friday night then.
So to your more direct concern,
I don't see that as a problem, but I mean, I'm not saying it could never happen, but I mean, it's not, the cars, I mean, the average age here is like 65 years old. So I don't think that's,
it's not a drag race, it's a car show,
it's a car
correct?
show, it's a national organization.
We have a car expert at the end of the dais.
Mr. Kopp.
This event used to take place at the fairgrounds probably 8 or 10 years ago, and then they moved up to Hebron Pines. In my mind, this is a wonderful event, and I'm a car guy, don't get me wrong, everybody knows that. This is a car show. These people will drive their cars in, they'll be lined up on display. The average age is my age. It's not gonna be a drag race, it's not gonna be a burnout contest. These are seniors that have a lot of investment in their cars. It's good people that are there for a good time. And I welcome them back. I mean, I miss it, because when they moved to Hebron Pines, it was spread all over a campground, and it was very hard to see. This is a wonderful facility for this, and I'm sorry, but I mean, if you don't like a blue light special, you don't move in beside Kmart. This fairgrounds bends over backwards trying to survive, to keep it going, and I think this is one of the better things that they've ever done, and I am excited to see it back. That's my opinion, so.
Thank you. Any other questions? Charlie, do you
Well,
have
no, I just want to remind the council that Joanna has done her due diligence and has informed us of the dates of the wedding, and there was a handshake agreement that the fairgrounds would be respectful of the dates of her wedding when we made those decisions.
The car show's great. I have no problem with the car show, but I just want to make sure when I see sock hop and band, I didn't know what the hours were because it doesn't say.
It does on the application. I missed this as well until Bob pointed it out. It says there will be a sock hop and a pig roast as well as an ice cream run on Friday afternoon. That's like on the, it was buried in all the bullets, so it's right there, the fifth bullet, and I didn't see it the first time I went through it, and I checked it yesterday too, so.
I mean, I think moving forward with the intent of goodwill, it would be good for the fairgrounds or for you to pass on the information that there's a wedding going on, and don't be revving your engines from.
I totally agree, and I have forwarded to the fairgrounds, I
Yeah.
have no dates.
No,
I have no dates at all forward to the fairgrounds of her events,
Yeah, no,
or her times that she needs quiet. I've never had any of that at
No,
all.
I know that.
So that's communication both ways.
okay.
We'll get that to you tomorrow, Lyle.
Well, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus either, I'm just saying that.
It's a big bus, don't worry.
And he drives it well, let me tell you. I'll tell you more about that later.
All right. Are there any questions for Lyle from the council? Any other questions, comments from the public? All right. On this agenda item? Go ahead.
I've got nothing against this couple. I know them briefly, but I think I've mentioned this probably 3 or 4 years ago, something like this came up, and I kind of agree with Mr. Kopp. You can't build a house next to the airport and complain about the flights making too much noise. And this comes up every so many times when they have some function going on there. You can't build or buy property near a racetrack, an airport, or a fairground and not expect to have some noise. So I think any complaint about the noise is just totally unfounded. Thank you.
All right, I will entertain a motion. Go ahead.
Madam Chairman.
Hold on.
Hi, my name's Greg Fryer, 111 Bruce Hill Road, married to Joanne. On that logic, you can't live near a railroad and complain about railroad noise. You can't live near a gravel pit and complain about gravel pit noise. The reality is that standards change over time, and, you know, common courtesy to the neighbors, I think, is always in order. Thank you.
And I think in our community, our community has just kind of shown that I think Lyle very much is saying, show me the information, and we'll more than happily do the best we can to all be good neighbors. Thank you. I will now entertain that motion.
Madam Chair, I'll give you a motion, or are you going to, Bob? Go
ahead.
for it. I'll second it.
All right. I move to approve the mass gathering permit for the Down East Street Rod Club's 50th annual Rod Run to be held on August 19th and 20th at the Cumberland Fairgrounds.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Thank you. All right, moving to 22-083, to hold a public hearing to consider and act on a mass gathering permit for the Cumberland County Fair to be held from September 25th to October 2nd at the Cumberland Fairgrounds. Any questions?
Madam Chair, would you entertain a motion for both item 22083 and 22084?
Sure. So just to read, item 22084 is to hold a public hearing to consider and act on a mass gathering permit for the Cumberland Soccer Club Just for Fun tournament to be held on September 3rd and 4th at Twin Brook Recreation Facility and Greeley Middle School. The one comment I'll make about that agenda item, just in case it sounds familiar, is this was brought up previously, but the application was incomplete. It was kind of put in with other mass gathering permits that were more timely and had been completed. So the application is now,
You know what?
is it just not?
You know, I did. Well, I didn't bring my reading glasses, number one. I'm looking at it, I'm going, yeah, but they're both at the Cumberland Fairgrounds.
Oh, they're
so,
not.
Yeah, so
They're
I
at Twin Brook. Yes.
apologize,
All
Madam
right,
Chair.
so 22083,
And-
Cumberland Fair at the fairgrounds.
You got it.
On 25th through the October 2nd.
Thanks, Ronnie. Oh, that was definitely my screw up.
Any questions?
Public.
Discussion? Lyle, anything different? Anything you want to highlight for this year?
Yes, I gotta bring my glass.
As you folks know, we had a two-day event in early July to kind of kick off our 150th celebration. That was a moderate event like we'd planned on. We really promoted the 4-H during that and the kids, and that went over very well. But this will be our 150th fair that we put on since the conception of the Cumberland Farmers Club. So we're excited about that, and we'll have a lot of, little things we're going to interject throughout the whole fair that'll focus around that.
Awesome.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Tig.
As I was reviewing the application, it was amazing to have 70,000 people come in, and I was looking specifically at your waste management plan. And I was curious if you had ever thought about kind of a plan to manage the bottles and cans, possibly as a fundraiser for 4-H maybe. It's something that we had done with the bicentennial, and we put out these big, or the volleyball boosters actually, put out these big canisters, the Clink ones, and people would just put all of their bottles and cans in there. And I think they did pretty well financially, and so I wasn't sure if you guys already had a plan in place to deal.
We already
Okay,
do that.
cool beans.
We have cages that are 4-H labeled, and that's where the returnables go.
That's awesome.
Not, well, a large quantity of the returnables go there, and obviously, still some go in the trash, but, so,
Great, thank you so much.
you're welcome.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead, Mr. Eads.
Hold on a second.
Yeah. Do you want?
Thanks, Ronnie. Madam Chair, I move to approve the mass gathering permit for the Cumberland County Fair to be held from September 25th to October 2nd at the Cumberland Fairgrounds. And thanks, Ronnie.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor? Thank you. All right, now 22-084, to hold a public hearing to consider and act on a mass gathering permit for the Cumberland Soccer Club Just for Fun tournament. Is Labor Day weekend. That tournament's been there for I don't know how long, as long as my child's been playing soccer at minimum. I don't know if anyone's here from the rec department or Cumberland Soccer Club to comment on this at all? I think it's, again, it's just the complete application. This did come in front of us and we tabled it. So, any questions?
I
Go
just
ahead,
wanted
Shirley.
to make a note that this is an exception to some of the guidelines at the Twin Brook Recreation Center. We generally discourage Sunday events at that facility so that the facility can be used by non-competitive sports people. We had a little blip, but it turned out not to be a blip. There's going to be a Sunday race, Burn the Barn, or some sort of race there.
Yep.
It's a Sunday late afternoon kind of event, but still, for the general public, I just would like to say that the intent of the bylaws that were originally produced for Twin Brooks were to avoid Sunday events. So just want to remind people of that.
Because there's also no dogs there that weekend, too.
That's a whole other issue.
I will entertain a motion if there's no questions.
I move to approve the mass gathering permit for the Cumberland Soccer Club Just for Fun tournament to be held on September 3rd and 4th at Twin Brook Recreation Facility and Greeley Middle School.
I will second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions? All those in favor? Thank you. Let's see. Item number 22-085, to hold a public hearing to consider and act on the approval of a temporary victualler's license for the Cumberland Soccer Club through June 30th, 2023. Oh, excuse me. That was the item that was brought up previously, but the application was incomplete. So I think on the insurance record, everything wasn't complete. I don't know, Mr. Manager, is there anything you would add to this one?
No, the only thing we were waiting for was the certificate of insurance, which named us additionally insured. And I don't think as of today we have received that yet, but we do expect to receive it. We have never not had it, so we should have it shortly.
The names on the victualers licenses that came to us previously this summer were wrong. The person who was listed has moved to New Hampshire like 2 or 3 years ago. It's someone I know, so I know that he was no longer the name, but now there's a Brett Austin listed.
Right.
And so he would be the contact
The
person.
right contact.
That was the issue I had, because the previous victualers licenses were not updated. They were just resubmitted and resubmitted.
Are we
So
feeling
I'm
we're in a
fine
good
with
position
this.
moving forward with the appropriate licensee, if you will? Any other questions or comments? I will entertain a motion. Any public discussion, any comment, anyone?
Madam Chair, I'll give you a motion. I move to approve a temporary victualer's license for the Cumberland Soccer Club through June 30th, 2023.
I'll second.
Thank
I
you.
would amend that motion to include, upon receipt of insurance certificate.
No problem. Yep.
We have an amendment.
That's fine with
Okay.
me.
So we have a motion, a second, amendment, motion, seconded. So again, the motion is to approve the license with the amendment of once that insurance is received. All those in favor? Thank you. All right, 22-086, to consider and act on the adoption of a resolution to participate in the Community Resilience Partnership as recommended by the Lands and Conservation Commission. I know we have both Mike and Denny here tonight. Do one of you want to come up and talk through it?
We get it a little bit colder in here. I'm awful hot.
Good evening, Denny Gallaudet, 67 Ranger Road. As you may remember, the state approved a fairly large climate action plan several years ago, and part of that was a $5 million funding package to allow grants to be forthcoming from local communities to engage in stuff that they've been working on. And so this was taken up by our Lands and Conservation Commission. We have the opportunity to, in this next 12 months, to apply for up to $150,000 in grant funding, 350,000 tranches. And because of your actions, we have a good list of shovel-ready projects that Chris Bolduc in particular is excited to get moving on. And so this is to part of the parliamentary procedures to make the whole thing roll forward, to get your knowledge of it and for you folks to undertake this resolution. It's a 2-year term, and you can kind of get out of it if you need to.
Are there any questions from?
Just real quick, Danny, this doesn't lock us into anything financially, right?
No. Actually, these grants, if they're aligned with the state plan, which they are, require no local match.
All right. Great, thank you.
No questions, comments? I think it's great. I appreciate your continued advocacy and making sure that we're getting access to all possible funds and keeping us moving and engaged in all the appropriate groups. So thank you, Denny. I will entertain a motion. Go ahead.
I move to adopt the resolution to participate in the Community Resilience Partnership as recommended by the Lands and Conservation Commission.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. I should pause really quick. Go ahead, Shirley.
Yes, we have a highlighted part that's parenthetically inserted when approved by the town council. Was that part of the documentation they submitted?
We added
Or is
that, and the chair
Because
and
that
Denny,
might be different from what they're expecting.
they accepted that edit.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Thank you, Shirley. And I should pause too if there's any questions or comments from the public. All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Thank you. 22-087, to authorize the town manager to execute a recreational trail easement within Blanchard Oaks subdivision. The one note I'll make, so this land is in conservation, was part of a conservation easement, but the HOA rules actually didn't allow trails. So this change provides clarity and the easement to actually form the trails on the property. Anything you would add, Mr. Manager?
Perfect.
Any questions or comments?
Is it a multi-use trail, or is it limited to walkers, or?
Non-motorized vehicles.
Okay.
Any questions or comments from the public? Oh, can you, just so folks can hear you who are,
Just out of curiosity, where will the trail run from? Like point A to point B?
I think it'll connect.
It's a really good question. What we have found, without reservation of trails, we lose the opportunity for future connections. This one is unique in a way that the developer has allowed us to basically stay no closer than, I think it's 300 feet from the closest home, and then anywhere beyond that, we can locate a trail. So in the future, if there's connection to other properties, we can connect to those properties more conveniently. So it's done basically at the location of our Trails Committee and our Lands and Conservation Commission.
Thank you.
Can you bring it up on the screen?
I could.
Yeah,
Take a
because
look.
this map that we have in our packet is not very readable.
Even without read glasses.
And I'm not savvy enough to turn it.
If you just use our agenda, maybe, Bill, it might be
It's
easier.
really
So I'm
fuzzy
gonna try
on
to
our
grab it.
agenda.
It would take another 8 minutes to get me over to the GIS system. We'll do the best we can to show folks where it's at.
We've got all night.
All right, so, the best part of this map is the yellow. The rest is almost impossible to see because of the resolution. But if you're familiar with Blanchard Road, when it goes beyond Skillens Road and basically forks at Orchard, the extension continues. And right around the corner is Blanchard Oak subdivision, which is the brand-new subdivision that's built. Basically, there is a dividing line with these 3-4 lots right here that splits the subdivision from the open space. And we are allowed to build the trail somewhere kind of in this box over here. So a lot of this, as you can see, well, you can't see, but I can tell you, is wetland and stream protection buffers. You can't build anything there. I would say if we were going to ever build a trail, it would be in this section here, and it would go in this direction or that direction. And that's the best way I can describe it in that. No, there are no plans currently, but in the future, who knows? You know, lots can happen to abutting properties over time, and this gives us the ability to connect trails in the future from basically a public easement that folks can access, park on, and access to trails. I don't think anybody's going to be using it anytime soon. It's probably more for the homeowners in the short term, but in the long term, as we basically properties grow and develop, it's a nice to have more than anything else.
Thank you. If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll give you a motion. I move to authorize the town manager to execute a recreational trail easement with Blanchard Road Oaks subdivision.
Second.
Motion second. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor? Thank you. 22-088, Town Council Committee Assignments. So I know we had a little bit of movement. Are there any changes or edits folks caught? Or is everyone good as presented?
I see our new counselor is very active here, so.
Sign of
Thank
for
you.
everything.
The newbie naivete. You should be on.
Like hazing.
We appreciate you, Tig. All right. Go ahead. Do you have a question?
I would love to, Madam Chairwoman. I move to approve the Town Council Committee assignments as presented in the meeting materials.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Any public questions, comments? All right. All those in favor? Thank you. 22-089, to appoint members to the Housing Task Force. Ron, I'm actually going to pass this to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We met about a week ago, a little over a week ago now, I guess, and I think we had 14 or 16 applicants, and we chose to limit this to 10 people. And I will read the names of the people. I move to appoint to the following Housing Task Force: James Broder, Brian Cashin, Rick Doan, Mary Lou Gallaudet, Betsy Harding, Mark Lapping, Katie Magoon, Evan Sweetser, Gail Witherell, and Justin Wood.
Second.
A motion and a second, though.
No, you have the second.
Okay. I was just going to say one comment. We did limit it to 10, but we were very kind of clear that those that were on the kind of formal committee, we are very grateful for those that expressed interest. And so we will be encouraging our appointed members to reach out to those folks too, since they were willing to participate. Just kind of finding that balance between efficiency of committee work, and also being able to kind of schedule and do that. But we were very lucky to have such engaged residents and passionate residents on this topic, so.
And it was the entire council, too, that went over this, just so everybody knows.
Yep. All right, I have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments?
My comment is, I think that we've put together a very well-balanced task force, too. You know, a lot of people represented.
Wonderful. I think we have folks who are taking this appointment in the audience tonight. Maybe for some of us counselors who don't know everyone, and for those at home, if you are one of the appointees, assuming we approve this at this moment. I think it would be lovely if you wouldn't mind coming up to the microphone and introducing yourself. You don't have to say much more, but I think, just bless you, just so folks can put faces with names. So we do have a motion and a second. Do we have any questions? All right, all those in favor? Wonderful. Please go ahead.
Good evening, I'm Brian Cashin. I live at 12 Wildflower Way. I've served as chairman of the Aging in Place Committee. I'm on the fire department as an EMT. I was vice chairman of the building committee that built that new fire station. So I'm glad to be involved in moving our community forward. Thank you.
Brian.
Thank
And
you.
thank you, Brian, for the work that you've already done, so.
And signing up for more.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Gail Witherell, and actually, I haven't done much recently, but I was on the school board for 6 years previously, and also was co-chair of the Greeley Middle School building project, and this was important to me, this part, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other appointees? All right, well, thank you both for being here, and thank you to everyone. All right, moving on to our next, we have 22-090 to appoint a member to the Cumberland Housing Authority, the Aging in Place Committee, and an alternate to the Greater Portland Council of Governments. Take this one too, Ron?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to appoint Stacy Daigle to the Cumberland Housing Authority and the Aging in Place Committee, and the alternate to the Greater Portland Council of Governments.
Second.
Do you have any questions? Go ahead.
Did you get a second?
I did, take seconded.
Stacy is here tonight if you'd like her to sing our high school theme song or anything like that.
Talk about a masochist. Thank you, Stacy, for being here. Any other questions or comments? Go ahead.
I thank you, Stacy, for stepping up. This is a lot of work for you to, and I know you're up to the task, and we all look forward to working with you. Thank you for your opportunity for us.
Looking forward to having you on board.
All right, I got a motion, didn't I? In a second? All right, all those in favor? Thank you. 22-091, to authorize the town manager to accept payment for delinquent fiscal year 19 taxes in the amount of $600 on property identified as map U19, lot 18. Mr. Manager? anything?
This is consistent with your past approvals in the last 2 months to help property owners get their property back into their ownership. This is a payment toward the FY19 taxes. We hope soon they'll be paid off, so we can take that foreclosure year off the books. And it looks like they've got a good plan to work toward, getting caught up, so, which is really good. So
Great.
we're encouraged, and the staff is recommending acceptance of those delinquent taxes.
Any questions? Any questions from the public? Comments? All right, I'll take a motion.
I move to authorize the town manager to accept payment for delinquent fiscal year 19 taxes in the amount of $600 on a property identified as map U19, lot 18.
Second.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor? Thank you. That ends our formal agenda, so moving to new business. One item I did want to bring up as we just think about logistics and agenda, we did receive a formal proposal, if you guys remember on the survey. The initial quote from the surveying consultant was, I think, somewhere around $20,000 to $25,000 to administer the survey, have reviewing the questions and doing everything. And we said, no, we're going to use the same questions and we'll leverage SurveyMonkey. We did go back to them around the analysis of the data and the weighting of the data to ensure that it was statistically kind of relevant and appropriate for not just kind of, who responded, but representative of our community. So they did come back with a quote of about 5,000, if I combine both those quotes, to do that. And they will be doing that. Our town manager accepted that quote. It's within his authority. So they will be processing that data and have it to us, I think by the end of the month. They have said they can hit that. And so the thought would be leveraging our August 8th town council meeting, which right now has no agenda items, or minimal agenda items.
Like this one.
Yeah, okay. Very tactical agenda items. So we would workshop start at 6 o'clock to go through what the consultant gives us. We will close the workshop, open the council meeting as normal, work through our business, adjourn, and then go back into workshop. Because it definitely isn't one of those things I think we'll be able to get through in an hour easy peasy. It's likely a lot of information to digest. So the expectation would be we can get it out to the council ahead of time, so you have some time to read through it, and then we would come back on the 8th. Thoughts, comments, questions?
Is the consultant there to present the results, or is it just simply we're taking them and kind of sifting through that information, just out of curiosity?
Yes,
They will,
the second one.
yeah.
Got it,
we will
thanks.
sift.
I'm
He
just
will
excited
not
to
be in
see it.
attendance unless you want to pay him to be here for any reason. I think Allison has had a really good working relationship with Brian and over the last several months, trying to get to this place, and she's been communicating the type she'd like to see it in. So I think it's going to be pretty well done, so.
And I think what we're asking them to do, because they had the old data, they're actually going to very easily be able to match up for us in a pretty clean way. So based on what he put in front of us, I actually think will be fairly digestible. It's not that he's like giving us a giant data dump. Like what we're actually paying them to do is to marry up the information where the questions are truly one-to-one and being able to do that, and also group the responses and help us understand if there's any statistical variances between kind of different demographic groups. But how they organize it and present it is kind of quickly red flagging where you see differences, so.
Can't wait to see it, like Shirley.
And then we can kind of take it from there. We'll digest what we can digest on the 8th, and then if we need more, we need more.
Sure. Madam Chair, the big item for the 8th will now be with the depending on how the reconfiguration goes, if you appoint on the 8th, then that's when that would probably be the only item we're
Okay.
trying to limit the agenda to, if possible.
Okay. That was just the big one I wanted to make sure we hit on. Do we want to start, or do we want to go back? Would we like to go back to our school board?
I'll bring it up if you want, Allison. Would that be
Okay.
I got a couple, anyways, yes.
Okay.
Whatever you want to do.
All right, you go ahead, Shirley. If there's anything else you
So
want to
are
hit
we
on.
talking about that or not?
When we get, Mike will bring it back up. So is there anything else
Okay.
you wanted to?
Okay. Well, I didn't know if I should say something about it now or when
We'll
Michael
talk about,
brings it
yeah,
back up.
we'll get through it.
Okay, just two quick things. One, probably 3 or 4 meetings ago, I was complaining about the state of Route 88 near the Yarmouth line. And I'm happy to report that I drove down Route 88 on Saturday morning and it has pavement. Those little ruts on the Yarmouth end are no longer there. Did we do that or did the state do that?
50/50, and next year the state is paving the rest of Route 88.
Okay. Well, hopefully the pavement will last and it's not just a paint coat.
It's paint coat.
Oh dear. Well, it's much better than it was.
Oh, much better, much better. Oh, that pavement, the pavement we put down is much better than the paint coat. Next year's paving is only
A paint
less than
job.
3/4 of an inch.
And I don't know, I might get in trouble with family members for saying this, but speaking of that end of Route 88, I hear the clamming is very good down there right now.
Now you're in trouble.
See,
Thank you, Shirley.
I've
Thanks,
already
Shirley.
ticked off Michael.
In Yarmouth, it's really great.
In
It's
Yarmouth,
in
Yarmouth, over on that side, right.
It's like telling the secret hunting spot or something. Come on.
The ordinance committee met last week. We had a very good meeting. A lot of people were there. We have a lot of work coming up. A couple of ordinance items coming right up soon will be a discussion about our blasting ordinance. And then Michael has brought up, or maybe it was Bob, we're investigating a charter change perhaps to have the new council electees seated in July, so there's not such a time crunch between, we're always trying to rearrange our June meetings to be able to have the election and use the council chambers for the election and then get the councilors seated. And so we're looking at that, which would be a slight charter change. But if the rest of the council thinks that there might be other little tweaks, we're not looking to do a whole charter change because that would open a whole can of worms. But we can do little things. They still have to be voted on, but by the public in a November election. But if you see something in the charter that you think could use a tweak, you could contact any of us on the ordinance committee. And then finally, I want to report out that last Thursday, several of us went out to Scarborough with the police chief and 3 other officers to a training on weapons and use of force, and it was spectacular. I think we were there 3.5 hours. The manager drove the bus, so when he was talking about it being a very big bus, I know he knows how to drive it.
I'm still traumatized.
I know it's short. Are you telling me to keep it short, Ron? Mark Segrist has pictures. But anyway, it was so interesting. And then we went through we learned about the different types of force they use, which might include, walking someone out a door with their hand on the shoulder, to lethal use of force, which hopefully they'll never have to use. But we learned about all the different types. And then we went through some scenarios. One was a traffic stop that quickly went south, and the other was the issuing of an arrest warrant. In one scenario, I shot someone. I was being a police officer. And in another scenario, I was shot so quickly, I didn't even have time to take a breath. So very interesting, and huge, huge appreciation and gratitude to our police department and our officers, to the chief and his team for organizing this for us, to Michael for your review and expertise along the way. It was something I'll not forget, just like I'll not ever forget when we went downstairs to see what sort of things had been confiscated in our community by our police department. I'll never forget that. That was probably 10 years ago now. But we do live in a very safe community, but our officers are not always safe in their jobs. And I am very grateful that they've chosen to be police officers. And that's what I have for tonight.
Thank you, Shirley.
I am going to jump on Shirley's train of gratitude and give kind of a shout out to the Lands and Conservation Commission. I've been spending a lot of time at Knights Pond lately, and the trails and the new trails, and just John Jensenius is out there kind of making sure that everything is safe, particularly for very clumsy runners like me who are apt to trip over things. And they've just done such an incredible job, and I feel like we're so fortunate to have this space, and I just really hope they get the recognition for keeping these trails beautiful and safe and pristine. And that's all I've got for tonight.
I did see John got a new delivery of gravel at Greeley Woods, so the minivan was there this morning. Bob?
Now I know why Shirley wanted to sit on the end there, because she could jump in and steal
Well, it was
all
whether
the
it was-
glory there. I mean, jeez, Louise, there's just nothing left for me to say. You covered it all. Anyways, the range day was just a really great time. Really appreciate the time and effort that the police department put forward for us. That was great. I just have a few things here tonight. As I was looking through the email this evening before I showed up here, I noticed that there was some federal money for Wood Bank, and maybe we
I
can-
forwarded that to Joe Loring.
You did already. Okay, good. Thank you. Passing of Victor Drew, I don't know, but anyways, I knew him. His children were my age group, and anyway, she passed on. A item for action that I've been thinking about some time, and now that I've got a little bit more time to think. We talked about having some sort of review of the Drown Road facility, and I'd like to bring that back up. The more I've thought about it, the more that I'm concerned about the welfare of the people that are there, and what their next step is, and how we as a community can be engaged with that. So I'd like to have that revisited. Last thing is the Shebeen Cumberland Mainline Trust is looking for an executive director. If anybody knows,
Did Chris leave?
Chris went back to Maine
Our
Farm.
meeting, he was, oh, the
Farmland Trust.
Farmland Trust, yeah.
Got it.
That's it for me.
Do you want to skip and go to Ron, and then we'll come back to you? Just if you're going to
Sure,
hit that?
why
Does that
not?
make, sorry.
No, that's great,
Does that make
Allison.
sense?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
perfect.
I have $20 from my friend Dean for the 4-H food pantry, and my $20 as well. West Cumberland has its own Facebook page, and on there today, there is a little note. Anyone heard of a grocery store plaza being built in the area of Route 100, Skillins Road and intersection? This is a buzz on the West Cumberland community page. Nothing that I know anything about. Mr. Manager,
No grocery store.
that's what I thought. I'm just putting it out there that we do not have a grocery store coming to West Cumberland, so put that to rest. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
A Walmart's coming, but not right at the same intersection. Not a grocery store. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'll let him quote you. Go ahead, Mr.
Madam Chair, I have two things. One, well, actually three. I want to thank the police department. Had a great time. I've been through a lot of those scenarios, but I'll tell you this was the best of the scenarios I've been through. You got a hell of a group downstairs, Bill.
Absolutely.
Really good group, and thank you very much. Second, over the next 3 years, we're going to see a huge transition on this council. And there's going to be a lot of unfamiliar faces up here in the next 3 to 4 years. I don't want to rehash what's happened over the last year. But at some point, we need to, and I guess what I'm doing is proposing, and I don't want to out-committee us, but we need to somehow get our written procedures down for this council to help the new council coming on. Because there's a lot of things that we rely on historical knowledge. But our two older councils aren't going to be here forever. And, you know, we hear I hear from Shirley and Ron, well, we did it like this a few years ago, we did it like this. And I really think it's important that we get stuff written down. So when I first came on the council, Bill approached me and said, listen, this is how we do the council chairs. This is just an example. The idea is nobody's going to be a chairman for more than a year because we want to share the responsibility, and it's a position that, we don't want to be like other places where the council chair gets power hungry. And it's been great because we've had a rotation, we've had a system, and the system was bypassed this time around. I don't want to belabor that point, but it was. So what I'd like to do is form some type of a group, and over the next year, that we somehow get the responsibilities of the council written down and have a procedure to rely on. And in that, including how we fill vacancies, because right now I think we did it this way, and I think we did it that way. We have nothing, we're just kind of flying by the seat of our pants. So that's the first thing I'd like to see, Madam Chair. Somehow we can get some monumented on how we do things. So I guess that will go back to the item we first spoke about on public discussion is I would like to, and we don't have to have a formal vote on it, maybe it's a show of hands and have everybody weigh in. I would like the council to to stick by what we said when we first talked about the school board. And I understand why things were done, but to delay the timeline, but I think we have a responsibility, the people of Cumberland, to stick by our word. And so I am asking that we can only consider the people up to 4 PM on the 7th. Does that narrow it down, I guess?
Yep, nope, that's
Thanks.
fair. Ron,
I
interest?
just weigh in
Okay.
as a,
Yeah.
I'm on the nomination committee with Ron and Mark Segrist, and after this discussion, no matter what the decision is at this table, and I don't know that we need to belabor this, but this discussion will bias me in moving forward in when I do get a chance to look at those applications. I'd like to say it won't bias me, but knowing your concerns and as a representative for you, when I sit in that nomination committee, that will be in my mindset, good, bad, or indifferent. And I'm just putting that out there for full disclosure and transparency. It can't not, given the fact that that this has been challenging for us.
Yep. And to clarify, your bias being understanding those that were in by the deadline and those
Correct.
that were not. Yep, I
Correct.
just want to,
I still think it's important to look at all of them, because I don't want to look at just 6 and then say, oh, well, we don't have one we like here, let's, I don't want to have to open it up again. If this would prevent us from having to open it up again, I think it would be more efficient to go and look at the rest of them that are in by next Friday. I don't know, Ron, you're on the committee, you might have the same.
And I agree with you, Shirley, too. I mean, Allison and I and you and Mark met the 5th, I think it was. I'm trying to go back. now.
yes,
It was the day after the 4th,
we
right?
had our communications committee
And when we
meeting.
met, we had 0 applications. I mean,
Right.
and then we had the date at the range, which everybody was there. And had we known on that date that we had 6 applicants, things would be a lot different, Mike. And I agree with you, Shirley. I am probably going to be biased, too, because if we know we had 6 people that put their names in before the date, and the timeline was what screwed everybody up. I mean, it was the 4th of July weekend, which was, a terrible time to try to do anything, but that is the way it happened. And I would be very hard-pressed to overlook the 6 that made the application on the deadline. I mean, they're just putting it out there. And I know where you're coming from, Mike. I mean, we said it. We dropped the ball, I mean, basically, but to the point is, that people didn't get their application in until the last minute. I mean, and it's the nature of the beast, I guess. I mean, so, but, and I have no problem going either way. I really don't. I mean, and I have to interview them all, so. And then make a recommendation to you guys, so Shirley and I and Mark, so.
Well, I guess maybe to that, I think our original was we would ask all of you to kind of lead that review, but we were saying, kind of like we just did with the Housing Task Force, that the full council would be invited/encouraged to be able to attend kind of that working session, and then definitely the interviews that follow. So looking to you to lead that process, but I think all counselors for sure had expressed wanting to be part of that full process. Bob?
So the process is somewhat colored, for me anyways. I know that there is an applicant that has shown interest, so I would ask that if any more names come forward, that I be not made aware of them until we actually sit down and talk about it, because I don't want to color my view of any particular applicant or go out and seek input from the general public about that individual. So I'd rather make sure that the confidentiality going forward is kept. I certainly have my bias as to what that position would look like, and certainly I will voice that when we do sit down and and we pick a candidate for that year's position. But anyways, I think that we, knowing what we knew when we knew it, I don't think we can say that there was a misstep. It maybe has the appearance of that at some point, but I think that we, as I said earlier, we may find that none of the applicants have the criteria that we're looking for, and we reject them all and either ask for, a deeper pool, or we actually go out and choose somebody from the public that we know has the criteria that we're looking for. So anyways, that's where I stand.
Yeah, I would say that, at the time, we made a decision based on the information that was available to us, and that's, in that moment, what we did on that Tuesday. I do think it's incumbent on us to look at all of those applications, because really what's important is that we put the right person according to those criteria that we've already determined into that seat. And if that person is in that group and happened to apply a little bit later because they missed it in the forecast or because they were on their first post-COVID vacation, I think that could be a real loss. But I do kind of also backpacking, Mike, to what you said about documenting procedures. I totally agree with you. And I also think that looking back at, for new people that might be coming on or filling vacancies, also having some documented resources so that they understand what their role is and so that they can ramp up really quickly and aren't asking lots and lots of inane questions like I do all the time because, I'm up here for the first time. So I would say that we kind of move on as follows because, really at this point, we don't want to flip-flop back and should kind of honor that, the new deadline that we've put forth, and just when we get together, as we were with the Housing Committee, be as collaborative and kind of take all of these applications really seriously so that we can find the right person for the job. My 2 cents.
Well said. I think you got your answer.
I was going to say, all right, so we
Good.
will move
We're good.
forward, clearly an understanding. So then logistically, we had originally slotted, well, I guess for nominating committee, originally we were going to have done review of the applications before this meeting. So now with the 21st being the deadline, where's my calendar?
25th would be your next meeting, and 6 to 7 has been blocked out for review of applications, similar to last time. If you think that's enough, or you want to push it up a half hour, it's up to you.
I think if we could as long as we get those applications over the weekend.
You will. You'll get those the Friday before the Monday.
It's good to have looked at them and come in with, our list.
Which I think was we knew again, also that was going to be tight, even the hour we had slotted for tonight. So Brenda, if we can count on you to consolidate and get those over to us, I think our commitment to each other is to have read through them all prior to that Monday and kind of come with our top handful of candidates. And that way we can just focus the conversation there. Okay. And then in kind of just getting ahead of it for the candidates as well, we had shared that the 20th was originally going to be the date for interviews. As we look at that timing getting pushed out.
August 3rd at 6 p.m.
August what, Bill?
August 3rd.
At 6 p.m. And your original request to the appointments committee was no less than 2, no more than 4.
Right.
And that would line up with your August 8th council meeting for appointment. And that's the one item we have right now scheduled.
Madam Chair, if I could, just to make this fair, you said no less than 2, no more than 4. Right now, we have 6 applicants. I don't know, I know of 3 of them that put their names in. I don't know who the other 3 are. Let's say we get 2 more. I just don't want somebody coming and saying to me, well, you only gave 4 of the first 3 a chance for an interview. I would feel more comfortable if we interviewed all of them to make it fair because of your statement and my statement saying that I would be remiss if I didn't lean forward to one of the first few.
What if we get, because
12.
they're not closed yet, what if we get 25 people out?
Well, and that's gonna be a catch-22, I mean.
I think, Ron, you set very specific criteria out. We can give you that checklist. Brenda, we took notes that night and we kind of list those through. So I think that checklist will kind of weed out a bunch of folks that might have stronger areas that you weren't looking for. I mean, you were really strong on the finance side, and you were really strong on school board, and you were really strong on construction. Those were really the three, and then you had some other items that you listed in that as well. So I think you did a good job in trying to lay out what your thought process was. So we'll give you that checklist, and then you can compare it against every candidate and kind of rate your candidates so when you come in that night. And if you want to start earlier, if we get 16, and it's,
I was gonna say, I was like, I think
let's
if we have folks where we are all looking at each other and we do not have any experience, we have no, and all we're looking at, just like looking at a resume, I think
Right.
can help you. But if we want to interview more, I think it was making sure we didn't feel as a council incumbent on interviewing everyone for the sake of interviewing and not wasting people's time, not us being the people, the candidates' time, if just based on kind of what they laid out as experience wasn't a good fit for what was needed, again, in this 1 year of term, as we look at what's on the school board's agenda. But I think if we want to interview more, there's nothing holding us back from doing that, once we
Right.
see the actual applicants. Again, I think we're making a lot of presumptions, because we have not seen the applicants and the
You
information
have some
they
strong
included.
applicants. You have some strong applicants, and I would say that probably many of you don't know. So I think that's fair, and, I think you'll go through the same thing we will. Look, wow, we have some good people applying, which was not the case at 9 o'clock that morning. We only had a handful of people, and all you knew was the number. I didn't tell you who they were. I said 3 people, and that's all we had. And then by the time we left for the range, a couple more trickled in, and then one more after that. So we were kind of in a tough spot where we wanted to basically notify the people that had applied that had nothing to do with the pool. So do you wait till 4 o'clock and then it looks like you reviewed all your applicants? You can't win that way. So I don't think you need to apologize. I think you did the best you could with what we had. So
Appreciate that.
It might be, because of the retreat that Jason mentioned, it may be good to communicate to some of the candidates that are coming in for interviews when those dates are, because it's August in Maine, and obviously whoever we want to appoint, it would be good to give them a heads up so that they can actually attend that. So I don't know if we can logistically kind of communicate with the candidates
I
about that.
didn't hear
but-
what the date was for the
Oh,
retreat.
Jason left.
Thought it was
August,
like the 17th maybe, but.
Third, wait,
no.
Third is us.
No,
later, I think.
22nd.
22nd?
Thank you.
August
22nd.
22nd. Thank you, Scott.
We can confirm that with Jason.
But my
yes.
understanding, that's a closed meeting, so they'll be appointed by then, so
Yes,
that's good.
exactly.
We don't have to worry about it.
Yep.
The other question I have for you, Madam Chair, is typically, these are open sessions except for the interviews. Those are done in executive session. The July 25th meeting would be a workshop. Don't think you can go to executive session for that, so it would be good if you kind of ranked them and came in with your own viewpoints and then had your discussion, but that's totally up to you. I can check with the town attorney if you feel it's important for any reason to be an executive session. You weren't with the housing
I was
committee.
going to say, we weren't with the housing and the nominating committee when they reviewed for the council seat. That was an executive session, was it?
Nope.
Yeah, so I don't think that would be inconsistent, in my opinion. I don't know if there's any.
The interviews, the only reason we do that close is so somebody's not texting somebody else the questions as they're being asked by you.
No.
And they're
And
well
I'd say
prepared when they show
kind of
up,
up
so.
to Ron, too, he'll be chairing that meeting.
I went to high school like that.
Yeah, we've seen the Greeley grads on the end of the table there, how they operate, so.
We went to Greeley.
Yeah, come on, what was the issue?
Come on.
All right, so then I guess, Brenda, if you can just communicate, and I think Tig's point too, just making sure folks have the dates coming in, because I think that's a appropriate question too, of being someone, if what we're looking for is someone to get on board quickly, being able to attend that. Do you have a question? Yeah.
If the opposite happens, Scott Jordan, if the opposite happens, and you end up getting more applicants, would be given a backup date in case you have more applicants?
For interviews, are you saying? Yep.
Correct.
Yep, that's fair.
Just a
Just
thought.
picking a second date in case we don't want to be in interviews for 5 hours at 6 o'clock at night. I mean, I do enjoy them, but.
I don't know that we want to interview everybody. I'm not,
I'm just saying that because some people interview better than they do very well.
yeah.
Let's see how many applicants we get.
Just a thought.
Again, I think the council is specific in the skill sets we're looking for, and I can't imagine that that many are going to reach that pyramid, if you will.
I agree.
I'm speaking for myself, but,
You want to sign up? You want to sign up?
yeah.
All right. Are you good on dates and everything? Okay. Are we good? I had nothing else for new business on my.
One more
Oh,
thing.
go ahead, Mike. On this topic?
Yeah, it's open.
Yeah, go ahead. If you have a question or comment, go ahead, yes.
I'm Kim Booth, and I've 20 Meadow Lane, and I've lived in Cumberland over 30 years. And I was concerned about the openness and fairness of the school board elections. And what I've heard tonight is, sitting outside and heard that there was an extension, I jumped to the conclusion there was something wrong with the people that already applied. And that's, I heard today that you hadn't looked at them, so I understand that, but everyone else that's not at the meeting hasn't heard that comment, so that's one comment. But we did receive a letter from some school teachers before the last school board election, and they claimed that they had looked at all 5 candidates and evaluated certain metrics and chosen their preferred candidates and sent the letter out to everyone. And I know for a fact that they didn't get to all the candidates. There was one candidate in particular who was not evaluated by the school teachers. So it's misleading that they sent that letter out, and I'm concerned that school teachers that work in the schools are going to be electing the school board. Or in other words, they're electing a school board that they're going to negotiate with. And I think that's unethical for that to happen.
I know you reached out to the council on this. Were you, and I directed you to Tammy, our town clerk, were you able to meet with her and share the information you had so she could help you?
And she said she was preparing a packet for the council.
Okay.
You all would have the letter at this meeting?
You do.
Oh,
In the- with-
it's
in the
under new business?
It's on new business.
We all got this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, from our end, we don't manage the elections, and that is the Secretary of State. And am I correct in that?
Yeah,
I mean, there's-
Tammy reached out to the Secretary of State,
Yep.
and basically, they pushed her to the Maine Ethics Commission. And I don't believe that you will find, while unusual, it hasn't happened since I've been the manager, that that type of endorsement has come out. I don't think they'll find that it's unethical, but the statement perhaps may be a bit misleading. So I think our issue is that we're basically, it is church and state a little bit. The municipality and the school district are separate by charter, and we don't have really any control over what anybody in the district does. Their budget is voted upon. We, just like citizens of the community, can only vote like you can vote. So that's about the extent of the input or control we have over the district when we formed our own district over 50 years ago. while the behavior might be not in line with maybe what you or I think would be appropriate, I think if you want to pursue this with the Maine Ethics Commission, that's totally appropriate, but I'm not sure you're going to be successful there either, so.
Well, I did apply, and she said Emma is looking at the information, so, and I haven't heard back. But it just doesn't seem right. It's very misleading for teachers that teach in the school system to come out and say, I looked at all 5 candidates, and they would not send us the data or metrics. We wrote and said, share the data and metrics, how you chose these candidates, and they would not do that. The only response back was that we had a campaign going through the entire state of Maine. This was an Augusta office. A gentleman in Augusta, Maine, had a campaign trying to, MEA, to choose school board members in each of the communities throughout Maine. And he was bragging about how he was successful in doing that. And I don't think outside agencies should be coming into Cumberland, Maine. I think the residents of Cumberland, Maine should be picking the school board, not people in Augusta. Or school teachers. They might not even be members of community of Cumberland. They might live outside Cumberland. Why are they telling me how to vote?
Lynn Booth, husband, living in Cumberland here. I'm the one that received the letter. I have lived here for 30 years. I taught in a neighboring district. I've been retired for almost 5 years. It was the first time ever as a member, which I have been, of MEA and my neighboring district. It's the first time I have ever received a letter as a teacher or a retired teacher stating this is what we suggest that how you should vote. And I was very surprised. And so I immediately contacted one of the teachers that I received this from, who did not answer me, but forwarded it on to the gentleman, as my husband said, that works at the state level in the government for MEA. And this person and I corresponded back and forth. And I asked probably about 8 or 10 questions, one being, what is the matrix, what is the criteria? You know, and none of those questions were answered. None of those questions were answered. And the last email that I received from him was basically washing his hands of it and saying, we were very happy with how our organization in supporting the candidates, I should say, the candidates that won, that we supported in the organization. And we were very pleased with how it came out. And we were basically gloating, saying that they won. And so we decided that we just didn't want to see this happen again. And so we went to the town, which we were suggested to do, after, you know, talking with at the state level. And when Kim talked with Tammy, who was very helpful, and she said, well, you know, she had never received, in all her years working here, she had never heard of this happening either. And so you know, there's nothing you can do at this point. Obviously, election's over, but she did even indicate, which was sort of interesting, she said, well, that sort of explains some chaos during the election, because we had people coming in to vote for 3 people, which were 3 people, their names were on this letter. And we had people coming in, we even looked at our ballots to see, is there something off with our ballots?
There are only 2 vacancies.
Right, and of course, we don't rank this, so I'm hoping, I'm really hoping, I would imagine the town would do this, that those were invalid ballots if they had 3 on them. Because
They were ballots that got rejected when the voter placed them in, and then they went back to the
went
booth.
back,
We had
okay.
to basically cross them out and spoil the ballot.
That's very interesting to me. I mean,
Right.
you can read on there and you know you're voting for 2, but we just found these dots sort of connected quite interestingly for us that, you know, and again, we haven't heard back from the state because Kim was told to contact him again, and the person he talked to the second time said, I'm the one you should be talking to about this. So we haven't heard anything back, and we're not, you know, we are not, you know, ones that will needle and needle and needle, and we're going to let it go. But our point is, because we've been bounced between state and local, I do wonder, where do the funds come for, and that's where it can become an unethical piece. Where do these funds come? Even the mailings, sending them out. Where do the funds come when you're you know, endorsing these candidates? And if it is more at a state level, which this individual from the state said, that they were supporting at state levels. I know a neighboring district, they got letters too. I checked with friends in other districts that I had taught with to see if they received letters, and they didn't. So there were targeted communities that got these letters this year. And so my point of it is this is not a political party issue. It should not be political. I don't believe school board members should be a political issue. I believe what they stand for, what they want to do for our schools is the important, and their passion is the important piece. And so I'm hoping your criteria, includes that along with all the others. You want someone who's financially, able to work, through all the things that they have to do in the budget, et cetera. But I also feel it's become very, very political in this past election, and that concerns me, because now we've got, others involved trying to make this happen. And I've always voted not necessarily party lines. I vote for the candidate I feel is the best candidate. And I think whether that's school board or state, wherever it is, I don't want to see hands put in and telling me how to vote when all that we've been working for is diversity. Diversity in our schools, diversity in our school board, diversity everywhere. So give us a chance to vote is how we see best. So I'm just giving you the background, and Kim did too. So it's something we don't want to see happen in the future. I don't think it's fair.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree with your sentiment. I think, right, you saw a real kind of what we're seeing across many, kind of the politicalization of kind of these local politics. I think this council prides itself on not running on political parties, like just to bring it home to kind of how we approach and the respect we give to each other and all citizens, and listening and not asking a question of a political affiliation, because it doesn't seem to matter. But there's also, I think, you experienced and felt a reality of kind of what has been happening over the last 2, 3, 5, 10 years in politics. But go ahead, Charlie.
So I've been an MEA member for 38 years and and I'm currently an MEA retired member. And not once did I ever felt politically the MEA represented me as a voter, because I tend to be a lot more conservative than the MEA does but they have, for all of my years, endorsed candidates. Not ever, like you, I've not ever seen one at the local level, but they have, that's a major part of their PAC. That's where the money comes from, their Political Action Committee, the MEA PAC, PAC. That's where they get their money, and they're always endorsing candidates for governor, for legislature, for Congress. And like Allison said, I think what's happened is people have become so disillusioned with politics at those far reaches that politics have moved into our local communities, and most specifically because people are passionate about schools into school boards. I don't like it. I can't stand it. The year I was chair was all politics. I almost didn't run for a third term, another term here, because of the politics going on at the school board level. It's not okay, because we don't get our best people doing their best jobs. So I agree with you. I'm not sure how we're going to stop it in the future.
Well, your charter prohibits putting a D or an R after your name on our ballots. So the council
Yeah,
can never run
right,
by party,
right.
by charter. So our
Right.
charter
But
basically
to have,
funds-
to stop, what I mean, stopping
Right.
Endorsement
the
activity.
endorsement activity from any organization.
Right. But
don't know how
I
that's
think the
gonna-
charter looked at that early on and said, look, we want the best people to serve for our community, who are the best people, and period. And I think your point is well taken. People should have a choice.
All right.
Yeah, I got one last thing.
Go for it, Mr. Yates.
We did not acknowledge your participation in Try for the Cure. And I had friends of Shirley, mine, and Ron participate in it and raise money for a friend of ours that's sick. But what you guys did down there, Allison, was amazing, and thank you for participating.
Hey, my pleasure. This year was my 4th year. Thank you, Mike, and glad I could be there and help support. My mother is a breast cancer survivor, 2-time breast cancer survivor, so it touches close to home, but I also have friends that have recently lost parents to this horrible disease, and thankfully one friend who is a recent survivor herself. So it was definitely something I am passionate about and have been, and, you know, I'll tap myself up for it once a year, that's for sure.
And
So
it's
thank you.
and it's spearheaded by a Greeley graduate.
Yeah.
Oh.
I want to send a shout out to Meredith Strink Burgess too, because she has really spearheaded the try and kept it going. And she's a Cumberland citizen, has been a long time Cumberland representative. And she was, I saw a picture of her today in social media, coming across last because she doesn't want anyone to be the last place finisher in the Try for the Cure. So for the entire history of the cure, she has been the last place finisher.
Winner.
Yes.
Last place winner.
Right. Because that's what stops folks from taking
Which
that
makes
leap.
her first in my book.
Totally, totally. Did you have just a couple minutes? Go ahead.
Bill, you may or may not know this answer. What happened with those ballots?
When a ballot is despoiled, it has to be basically put aside and put in the box with all the other ballots so that we can show where the spoiled ballots are. There's a special envelope. They're inserted into that envelope and marked as spoiled. They do not count in the machine. The machine won't count them. It rejects them. That's why they had to be issued a separate ballot so they could actually vote for 2 candidates, not 3.
And then where do those ballots go?
Secretary of State has all the ballots from all our state elections. They usually get them very quickly. If it's close, if there's a recall vote or basically another vote that they, within, I think, 2%, they basically collect them all. The state police will be here to collect them all. But we're required to keep them until asked for the Secretary of State, and I think it's up to 5 to 7 years. So.
And then I may have missed it. How many ballots were null and void on that?
Well, good question. Between 9 and 10 o'clock, over 25. I don't know what it ended up the whole day, but all of a sudden Tammy and I are looking at each other saying, something's not right here. And when I ran into Pete Bingham in the hall, he explained to me what had happened, because he knew about it. I did not know about it, that the endorsement came and 3 candidates were endorsed, and people were literally filling in all 3 circles. And obviously, when there's 5 candidates and that says vote 2, very clearly, vote 2, we couldn't put up big signs anywhere in the polling place to say, remember, only vote 2 on this item. We wanted to because we couldn't figure, we thought we were going to run out of ballots if that continued hour after hour. We didn't, but after lunch, it seemed to calm down. It was mostly in the morning, so.
Did you see the seriousness of this? You recognize
Oh,
this?
absolutely. If this were an election where, you know, we were right on the edge of the number of ballots we had, and then we had to hand count, and we had, I mean, you add a whole bunch of error into a system when you have to start manually counting votes. It's a lot easier through the machines. It's a lot more credible, and the process is sound. So we
I don't
were
know
not
if it's
happy.
sound, because I was short 1,802 votes. I'm sorry, 182 votes the next morning, compared to Governor LePage, Ed Thielander, and Jennifer White. I actually had to bring that to Tammy's attention the next morning.
Right.
Because there was an issue with one of the voter machines, allegedly, because I don't know, so I'm saying that respectfully, I don't know.
Right, and that's why we typically don't certify the vote until at least a day after, until we can go through the math and our head is clear after 16 hours, you know, behind machines and stuff. So, no, that was a good heads up, Scott. We do appreciate that. We were able to untangle that, so it all matched up. Yes, and typically we will be waiting until the whole 48 hours passes for us to certify. So we did certify accurately with the state, and they were happy with the extra work we put into that. So
Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate that, Bill.
I support the MEA. My wife's been a member all her life, but they claimed they looked at all 5 candidates.
Yeah.
They did not. They lied, and they sent it out to Cumberland voters, and they all went to the poll, and 1, 2, 3, select 1, 2, 3. That's not a fair election.
No, I agree.
It's not. It's not transparent, it's not fair. And we can't all just say, oh, well.
Madam Chair, motion to adjourn.
Please. Second. All those in favor? Thank you. Adjourned.